Tonight on Pen the Writer's Utopia. Listen, you want to be in the room tonight, y'all. I am super excited to be hosting. You already know what I'm going to say. One of my favorite people, okay? She is an author, and it is none other, wait a minute, author and coach. And I cannot wait to sit down with her tonight. You know what to do. Go ahead, make sure you share this broadcast, because somebody in the Writers Utopia is going to need to hear it, baby. And make sure you come on right back. This is Pen the Writers Utopia, baby. Come on in and let's get started. Welcome to Pen the Writers Utopia. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. Listen, you already know I have an amazing show and an amazing guest with me tonight, and I cannot wait to get started. Why? Because we are talking about writing stories with purpose, okay? And what better person to talk with about that than my good friend Lynn Delgaudio. She is an author, she is a coach, y'all, and she is a speaker. Listen, she wrote the wonderful book, Altered on Impact. Come on, put your hands together and help me welcome none other than Lynn Delgaudio. Hey, Lynn.
Wow, I sound amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You are amazing, Lynn. You already know that. Look, it's T. Lynn and Lynn in the house, y'all. Look, I've been so excited to talk to you, Lynn. I forgot to tell our viewers. Make sure you guys join the conversation tonight, okay? It is going to be fantastic. And as always, I want to shout out our lovely people that have already joined the conversation tonight. Thank you so much, Alan, over at Support Our Creatives, and my love bug, Mr. James Tate. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Look, I'll call out your names too if you go on and join that conversation in the comments, all right? So, Lynn, what can I say? I love you so much, and I so appreciate you. Okay, so I'm gonna get over that. I know y'all like, come on, T, let's get to this writing purpose.
Yes. Yeah, but no, listen, when I first met you at IIN, when we first met, we knew like there was a future there. Like we were going to be working with, yeah. So
we did. So listen, Lynn and I, because obviously, you know, I have a relationship with her. You guys can tell. I mean, I'm excited about her, right? Lynn and I went to a nutritional health coaching school, holistic health coaching school together. And it was a joy. And she's right. When we did our coaching circles together, we knew that there was a connection and that it would one day lead us to doing something big together. And we've been doing that. Like, we're in different networks together. We're constantly supporting each other's work. I'm excited to have her. So let's go ahead and find out why I'm so excited about her, because she's great. She's like, I make her sound great, but that's because she is great, y'all. So Lynn, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Other than I'm being great. Yeah, okay. Well, we all know I'm great. That's you've made that clear. So yeah, like you said, I mean, I don't know if I can beat that. I'm a coach, I'm an author, I'm a little bit of a weirdo sometimes, and I own it. I'm good with that. You know, I corporate America most of my entire adult life until, you know, I had a pretty bad injury in 2014, and you know, I was alone with a traumatic brain and spinal cord injury. And so it was just me and my communication system between the brain and body that led me down this really amazing, wonderful, painful at times, but wonderful, mysterious, miraculous healing for me. And when
Yeah.
I learned, and just intuitively, I was developing these strategies for me to heal my mind and body. And but then when I learned that there was neuroscience behind why what I was doing worked so profoundly and so transformed me, that's when I knew I had to write. And if you can believe it, Lynn, pre-injury, I was very reserved, pretty quiet, and like you cannot shut me up. Everything, my whole personality changed. And people who've known me pre and post injury are like, wow, that was like the best thing that ever could happen to you because you're such a much better person now. So, you know,
You're like, oh, so wait, I had to get a brain injury for you to realize I was such a fantastic person.
oh, well,
Yes.
I
Well, I
feel
think you're fantastic. I didn't know you pre-injury, but I certainly think you're fantastic, and I love the person that you've become. But I'm not going to blame that on the brain injury. What I will say is it helped you come out of your shell, and as we're talking about tonight, it helped you find your purpose.
yeah,
And
totally.
definitely one of them was in writing the book,
Yeah.
Altered on Impact.
Hmm.
Um, Listen, from trauma to transformation. I say that to people all the time. For those of you who know and or watch my other show, Sip and Chat with T. Lynn, I say it all the time over there. Adversities in your life usually lead you to your purpose. If you pay attention to what happens and you walk out of that with a lesson, you will find what your purpose is and what you should be doing. The adversities in your life, they're there to grow you. Some of them are very unfortunate events and they're very painful to walk through. But
Hmm.
in the end, when you take those lemons and you add a little purpose to them, that sugar to them, you end up with lemonade. And I feel like that's what you've been able to do. I
Yeah,
know.
and it's a choice. It's definitely a choice. And I made the choice that, you know what, eh, during the healing, I made the choice that I knew when bad thoughts entered my field, I felt bad. I knew when negativity entered my field, I felt bad. And all I chose every single day was I want to feel good.
Yeah,
And whatever I did, and appreciation was huge. And I think that comes into play when we go through something like this. If we can stay in appreciation and in those positive states, that really helps us in that choice to make it um, something that helps us find our purpose rather than keep us in victim mode.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the way you address that victim mode. Like we can stay there or we can do something about it. One of my favorite quotes is life is 10% what happens to you and 90% what you do about it.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what you did. You took that 10%. It happened to you. That 10% happened. That brain injury happened. That freak accident. I'm gonna say it was a freak accident, but it was obviously a purposeful accident, right? Because it led you to your purpose. But that freak accident literally led you to the 90%, which led you to your purpose. That 90%, you took that and you created your purpose. So let's talk about that purpose a little bit with your book. So you wrote the book, Altered on Impact.
Hmm.
What was that like? Because I'm pretty sure with a brain injury, for a person that doesn't have any type of brain injury or brain, I would say ailments, writing a book can be challenging all within itself, just on normal basis, right?
Yeah.
But then you take on top of that a traumatic brain injury. What was that like when you decided to sit down and write your book?
So I didn't decide until I think 2016 or maybe late 2016 or 17. I don't remember, somewhere in that time frame, because I was driving down the road somewhere and I turned on YouTube and there was this guy telling his story about how he was in a horrific accident, shattered his spine. They said, you'll never walk again. They were telling me I'll never run again, and he said, I'm going to heal myself. And if I can walk out of this hospital, I'm going to dedicate my life to neuroscience. And he's explaining all this science and I'm listening to him and he's like telling my story. Like
Yeah.
I had this healing kind of stuff. It was so crazy. But in that moment, I was like, oh my God, and plus my boss was noticing. He wanted to know what I was doing because I was so consistently happy and more productive and steady. And he wanted my secret. So I realized in those two events that I can really help people not only heal,
Yeah.
but be more productive and less stressed. And so that was kind of that moment where I was like, oh my God, I have to write. So I was over much of I still have some stuff that you wouldn't even notice if you didn't know me. But over it took me like a year to get through a lot of those symptoms
Okay.
so I still had vision. It took a year for my vision. I still was a fall risk a year later, but but by 17 or 18, when I really got into writing, it was 18, I really started writing, and I had to go back to the medical records. That was so difficult. I hadn't looked at those things in a while, and I'm reading this story almost
Yeah.
of this woman, and I'm like, oh my God, like how did she
Yeah. It felt unreal.
well, it was the first time I was like, holy cow, I've kind of been through a little bit here, like
Yeah.
I was. It took, and then a couple of times I had to just put it down because I would like, I just now I get nauseous sometimes when I think about it because my body remembers. So it was difficult, and for you guys out there that have writer blocks, I talk a lot about limiting beliefs. I got through like this. A couple things I want to say. Okay, so I got through like the third chapter, um, and then I couldn't write anything, or the fourth, I don't know, but it was early in the book, and then I just couldn't write at all. I had the biggest block, and I couldn't understand. And then I sat back and I realized I just finished writing a lot about my career, which was creating a lot of stress. Not because my career is stressful, but the story I was telling myself about my career was. And I realized that
Mm.
writer block, it was like that limiting belief was hindering me writing, going beyond. Until I cleared that block about my career, I couldn't move on. But
Well, I
one
will
thing
put a pin there for a second
yeah,
because I'm interested in knowing, and I'm sure our viewers are interested as well. Like, how did you overcome that block? So you said you cleared that block out. How did you clear that block out, if you don't mind sharing?
yeah. So the way I originally cleared it in the first place, before even writing the book, was I remembered thinking one day, God, my job sucks. My career just is so stressful. And then I looked at like all those other areas of my life, right? Friendships, education, finances, whatever, joy, spirituality. And I'm looking at all these other aspects, and I'm like, well, they're not perfect either, but I'm very
Yeah.
happy within those other areas. So what is it about my career? And so I just started writing, work is blank, and I filled in the blanks, and I started filling in the blanks. Everything was negative. I was telling myself a really bad story about my career. And I'm like, well, let's get to reality now. Reality check, right? I got paid well. I worked remotely. I made my own schedule. I was not micromanaged. I had wonderful collaborative people, colleagues. It, yeah. So where was this bad story coming from?
I like that. I
So I
like
did the
that.
same thing in that moment.
Yeah, I've done that, and I like that because you're right. You changed the narrative. Now, how I did it was, we're talking. I would just go ahead and say we're talking the law of attraction is basically what that is, because whatever you're telling yourself, positive or negative, that's what's going to constantly manifest. And as you said, I'm constantly telling myself something negative about my job, and therefore that's what's producing. And I would tell people all the time, when you find that your job is stressing you, this is a hint for everybody that's watching. When you find your job is stressing you, start saying something as simple as, even if you can't list out, like Lynn looked and said, wait a minute, I make good money. She was able to start listing things. But if you can't find those things, because sometimes it's possible that you can't find those things, you can just start with a simple, I am grateful for my job.
Yeah.
Just give gratitude. I am grateful for my job. And I've had to do that in many jobs as well, Lynn. I am grateful for my job. And as I did that, you're right, your perspective of it changes. And then I was able to move on and get a new job. But in this case, you were able to tell yourself or reprogram your mind to be grateful for your job. And that opened up the waterways for you to write past that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, gratitude and appreciation. I prefer appreciation because sometimes, when people say, I'm so grateful for this, because then there's like a negative that follows. And
Yeah.
so, but you're in the purest, one of the most purest frequencies and places of in the receptive mode. And what I learned a couple of years after well, about 4 years or so after my accident, maybe longer, I had a conversation with a guy from Harvard Medical, Dr. Gary Epler. And I said, why did I not go to victim mode? Like, I know I did at times, but for the most part, I was able to stay in appreciation. And he said, you know what? And they actually coined this after him, the Eplerian effect. You can only be in one region of the brain at any given time, period. So if you're in your amygdala, your fear, judgment, shame, etc., you can't grow and you can't heal and you can't have critical thinking. But when you're in appreciation, you're in those regions where you grow, heal, learn, love, have compassion. So if you want to be more creative, and you want to, be a better writer, it's really important to, or you just want to heal through something, it's really important to practice that appreciation. You say by you practicing that constantly every day, that's what kept you out of those other regions. And I
I
think
love
that's what
that.
helped me write too. And when I first was writing this book, I was going to make it like corporate-y because I realized how much it helped me in my career. And then my editor said, I like these first 3 chapters and the rest, throw it away. You're doing a rewrite.
Yeah.
And she said, this has to be your story, period. It just has to be your story. And thank God she did that, because then it just all flowed. It was so easy. I was struggling and struggling and struggling because I was trying to force something, right? And then when I
Yeah.
made it my own, oh my God, it's way better than it ever could have been. So I think it
Yeah.
was really important that I took that advice openly from her. I didn't have like any expectation of like rigid outcome. I was trusting in her in the process. So that was a huge deal, to be open to that change.
I love that. And so, and I think that's important to talk about too, because sometimes when we go into writing our projects, we have in our mind set how we want it to be. And I think I've shared this before, even with my own book. When I first started out, I thought I was going to write a nonfiction book, just like you, just about my life in general and tell my story. But for me, it was better that I take it and be able to have more freedom, which I enjoyed, in making it a fiction, making it a novel instead, because I was able to give so many more scenarios and really tell a story with it to get it out. And so, just like you said, sometimes you go in one way thinking it's going to be one way, but then you get the gift of finding out how it really wants to be told, right?
Yeah.
So the book will tell you how it wants to be told if you trust it. And in your case, it said, no, I want you to tell your story instead of all the corporate things, because your story is what's going to be impactful. So
Yeah. And the other thing too, I think part of me was a little fearful to tell my story. Not to tell my story, but fearful that this is gonna sound so bizarre, guys, but fearful that if I was in that energy, I would get re-traumatized. I
yeah,
was fearful that I would go back into fear, because when the pain got so bad, and I was fearful that I would regress, and I was fearful that I would get symptomatic, and I've heard that from other people who have written about their injuries, but that's actually what helped me heal even more.
and that's a good point. So there are a lot of people who write books that have stories of trauma, not just brain traumatic brain injury, but
Right.
we have people that tell their stories of maybe they were sexually abused, or maybe they were in a domestic violence type of situation. But whatever the traumatic story is, I'm sure they would love to hear your take on how did you get past those moments? Because you're right. When you go back to write your story, even when you did the research and you went back to look at your own medical records, and I know of several people who have done that, who have had that same issue. They went back and it was shocking to see what they went through, because most of the time you're not looking at it because you're like, whew, I'm just glad to be over that hump. But how did you handle, and what tips can you give our audience on getting past that, like in telling those areas, those sensitive areas, and revisiting those areas that you were healed from? How did you handle, or what tips do you have to help them walk through that process as they're telling their own stories?
So first, if it's creating a lot of anxiety, I'm clearly not in a creative mode, and I put it down, and I meditate, I take a nap, I go for a walk, whatever it is. I can't remember how this came up, but somebody said it's okay to feel sorry for yourself, and I said no. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself, but it's perfectly fine to have sorrow for myself. So in those times that I got little verklempt looking at all this, and I would say, I'm gonna just have some sorrow right now. Or I would imagine I'm talking, I don't have kids, but I imagine I'm like telling, if I had a daughter, giving her my advice and then taking that advice from me. And I would just kind of, say, I'm gonna have this moment, and I still have energy or I realized I still had energy that needed to be released out of my body. Right. And so I would like tapping, right? I would do something to help release it out. And then I just go, when I was in a better, state, back in the better regions of the brain, I go back and do it again. But I try not to put too much pressure on myself. Now, there were other times where I was blocked. And there wasn't it wasn't because of the medical records. I was just blocked, And so sometimes I would just try to force myself to write something, but a lot of times I would just take a step back and go, it's not the right time. If I'm feeling the anxiety, and just take a step away. You have that sorrow for yourself, and say, well done.
Take
and
that moment to breathe in that you did get something done that day. One thing that I will add to what Lynn is saying is, for you guys that are writing very sensitive moments in your life, and you're telling your story as you're writing in whatever project it is, whether it's a screenplay or whether you're writing a book, one thing that I also suggest to my clients is, if you have a therapist, make sure you utilize them in this process, especially if it was something very, very traumatic that you had to get counseling for previously anyway. It's okay to have them on tap while you're writing your book, because some moments may require you to go a little bit further, and get that extra help in processing what it is that you're going back and having to rehash in order to get the story out. I don't want you to think that, oh, we're giving you we're giving you tips, yes, right? But we're also aware that sometimes you still need that helping hand, that licensed professional that will be able to walk you through those things as you're sharing them, because everybody is in different places, right? And so everyone experiences things differently. So it's okay if you need your therapist on hand while you're writing your book. It's great to have them there as a tool. But if you're able to manage without going, to your therapist, that's great too. But don't feel down or beat yourself up if you need to have your therapist there in the process. Would you say that's fair enough to say, Lynn?
Oh, absolutely. And mine was on speed dial for sure. But also, energy work is really, really effective, because sometimes we'll think, like, cognitively, I understand what happened, I'm over it, yada, yada, I understand. But energy can get stuck in your body, and your body remembers, so that stress loop, I guess, can continue on without your even knowing it. So I would really highly recommend that too.
And I'm gonna piggyback on that and say, I understand what you're saying with that, because when you said tap touch, you were doing the tapping.
Tapping. Yeah.
I did heart touch therapy one time, and it was amazing because, like you said, that energy gets caught in your body at those stress points, gets stuck in your body, and you don't even know you're housing them in different places.
Right.
And when I did heart touch therapy, and for those of you that's like, what is that? It's a great way to say it's like acupuncture mixed with pressure points. It's a way to open up the energy channels in your body to
Meridians.
be able to let it flow. Those that know about acupuncture, it's great because as the needles are tapped in, they open up different channels to let different things flow, different energies flow. Heart touch therapy is another way, but it's more with acupressure.
Sure.
That's the word I was looking for. Acupressure versus puncture with the needles. That's the difference.
Yeah, they're so flimsy. I hate that they even call them needles because they're so flimsy. It's like a cat
Yes,
hair almost, like a thick cat hair.
it is
And the
very
other thing that
thin.
I found really, really helpful because I didn't like putting pen to paper. I use voice recorder when I went out for my 8 or 10 mile walks, and
Yeah.
I just recorded, and then I came home and I typed
Yes. It's a
because
great
that
way.
was
And then
working better
there's
for me.
so many different things now, so many different applications out here now that you don't even have to type. If you don't want to sit there and take your own dictation, you can always record and then use an app to transcribe for you. That's there too for an additional cost. And at this time, I'm not going to give any names of any, but I'll just say there are several of them out there. I think, and I said I wasn't going to give names, but I am. Word. You can do it in Microsoft Word for those that use Microsoft Word. It'll take dictation for you as well as Google Docs. So it's different ways that you can get things transcribed. But I love that idea of a recorder, and I have promoted that before. See, guys, everybody has different ways. Now, all of us have to sit down and write it. Sometimes you can just speak it and it's there. But I do recommend all of you guys, and I say this quite often, make sure you guys keep a notebook handy. Like Lynn said, you're right. Going out for a walk, oh man, or a drive. Sometimes the creativity just flows when you change your atmosphere and you're not sitting at the computer, like I'm waiting to type, I'm waiting for this thought. Sometimes if you just get out and take a walk, it'll become so clear and things will start flowing for you. I definitely promote that as a way to break up the monotony and the blockage when it comes to writing. For sure. I agree with that.
And you'll get your D3.
You say that again? Oh, yeah.
And
And you'll get your D3. You'll get your vitamin D. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, time has certainly, it always flies when we're having fun. I know a lot of people say, T, why don't you just make it an hour? Because if I make it a half an hour, you'll stay with me the whole time and you'll get all the juiciness. If I go an hour, you might not want to sit with me that long. So we are almost at that we are almost at that half hour mark. And there's one thing that I always like to give my guests an opportunity to do. And that is, if there is one nugget of wisdom that you would like to leave our viewers with tonight, what would that be?
You didn't tell me you were going to put me on the spot like this.
I know. So that way it's fresh off the press and you didn't have time to think about it. It'll be nice and fresh and exactly what you want to say.
I don't know. If I've learned anything from this, it's that, I really found a way to love myself. I think maybe for truly love who I am. And when that hit me, it was like, I just loved everybody else. Like I just wanted to hear everybody else's story, because everybody in this world is epic. And I believe that the greatest gift we can give humanity is our own self-realized, self-actualized self. So I just want everybody to, don't be afraid to get your story out. Tell it. The world needs it. No matter, because listen, never underestimate the impact you can have on somebody. You'd be surprised. So, and just be kind.
She gave you 3. I
Oh,
love
sorry.
that. No, you didn't do anything wrong. You started because you said, I don't know. And then you said, love yourself. And then you said, you never know how much your story, how impactful your story will be for somebody else, which is true. You got to tell your story because you don't know who needs it. So for all of you guys that are watching and you know you got a story to tell, but you've been giving yourself the excuse of, I'm not a writer. I don't know where to start. Will anyone else listen to me? I'm telling you all this because these are things I've once told myself a while ago, right? It's no excuse because somebody needs to hear your story. If it's there and if you have the inkling to tell your story, then 9 times out of 10, your story needs to be told. Someone is waiting on it. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to write the perfect sentence. That's what editing is for. When it goes to the editor, that's what that is for. Your job is to sit down and start the process of telling your story. And then you can give it to someone else or trust someone else rather to go make all the corrections for you. It doesn't have to be perfect for you to get it out. It just needs to be gotten out. And then your publisher or your whoever you go through, your editor, can help make the adjustments from there. All right. Oh, and then the last one she said was be kind.
Yeah.
That's important. See, 3 great nuggets. Yes. Listen, Utopia family, you know what to do. Go ahead and put that hand clap in the comments if you have enjoyed Lynn tonight. Show her some love. Come on, you know what we do here in the Utopia. We like to show our guests appreciation, yes, and gratitude for joining us. We appreciate you so much, Lynn. Listen, make sure you guys go out and get your copy of Altered on Impact, all right, by Lynn Delgaudio, all right, from trauma to transformation. You can get her book on Amazon, and or can they go to your website to get a copy of it as well?
They can. And let me just say too, it's more than my story too. At the end of every chapter, or mostly every chapter, there's actually practical, actionable exercises for you guys to, help you out on your own.
Look at that. She not only told her story, but she gave you some actionable steps that you can help and help yourself with by applying them to your life. Listen, go on over to LynnDelgaudio.com and grab your copy. Will you sign it for them too, Lynn? Make sure that if they order it, you send them a signed copy of your book. That's the beauty. If you go to Lynn's website, I'm gonna put that out there. If you go to Lynn's website and buy the book, you can get a signed copy. But if you go to Amazon, she'll appreciate it, but it won't be signed by the author. So go support her at her website, LynnDelgaudio.com, and grab your copy of Altered on Impact. Lynn, thank you so much. I told you before we came on air, I shared, look, y'all, I almost cried before we started because Lynn has been such a tremendous blessing to my life. She did not know, but I shared with her tonight how much of a blessing she has been. Thank you for gracing us with your presence and blessing us with your presence today, sharing your story and your tips. We appreciate you, Lynn. As you can see, the hand claps have been coming up in the comments for you.
Thank you.
Show her some more love and appreciation because she's special to me. Make sure you go on over to LynnDelgaudio.com, grab your book, your copy of the book, Altered on Impact. We're out of time, you guys, but I thank you so much for joining us tonight. I certainly appreciate you for watching. Make sure you share this with another writer, guys, that could use this help. We're always growing the Utopia family. Make sure you keep up with us. You can go to keytolife.com if you're in need of help and you're looking to write your story and you need some help. T-Lynn's your girl. I do that. Going over to keytolife.com, I will help you by becoming your writer coach if you would like that. All right. Love you guys. Appreciate you. That's all for tonight. Now that you have these wonderful tips and she told you to be kind, embrace yourself and love yourself, right? She said, tell your story and be kind. You have some great tips tonight. Now go write something great. I'm Lynn Tate, and this has been Pen the Writer's Utopia. See you guys next week. Bye.